welcome. Special welcome to my crew from Chesterton, Indiana. And a special welcome to our Gladiators from the Jenks High School baseball team. Appreciate you guys being here tonight. Thank you very much. We're going to call to order tonight's regularly scheduled meeting of the Jenks City Council. Today is Tuesday, June 1st of 2021. It is 6:00 p.m. We do have a quorum of our members present tonight, so we will be conducting the business for the city of Jenks tonight. This gentleman to my left is Brandon Macy, who's our city clerk. He will take attendance. My name is Corey Box, and I will be your chair for tonight's proceedings. Mr. Macy.
Klein. Present. Short. Here. OJ.
Here.
Caitlin.
Here.
Isabel. Here. Murray. Here. Mayor Box.
Here. Let the record reflect that all our members are present. And for tonight's invocation, we are blessed to have Pastor Mike Shaw, Dr. Mike Shaw from the Beaver Street Southern Baptist Church here in Jenks. Pastor, if you'll join us, please, sir.
Let's pray. Father, on this Memorial Day weekend, so near to today, we pause and give you thanks for the freedoms that we enjoy living in this great country and those who sacrificed to make that possible. Father, we thank you for our public officials here tonight, for their leadership and for their service, and for them and everyone in attendance. Father, I pray that we might have discernment and wisdom to be able to pursue and choose the decisions that are best for the city of Jenks and the citizens of Jenks. And Father, most of all, for decisions that are pleasing in your sight. Father, I pray this in the name of Jesus Christ, your Son. Amen.
Amen. Please join us as we honor the flag of the United States. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going to get our evening started off tonight with a special proclamation. I just wanted to let everybody know that this idea came from Councilor Rodney Klein, who's got a significant. Are you a legend in your own mind, Councilor Klein, on the baseball field? Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and let Councilor Klein have a couple of minutes, and then we'll read the proclamation to sign this off. Thank you, sir.
Coach Timmerman, if you and your players would like to come just stand up front here for us, I'll have a few words, and then we'll move on.
This way.
Yes, that would be great. We're honoring the 2021 Jenks Trojan baseball team tonight. They have recently captured the 6A state championship. And just for a little bit of history, for those who don't know, 6A is the largest 32 teams in Oklahoma. And it started in 1996. Now, the first 7 years, Jenks won 3 state championships, the last being in 2002. But it's been a 19-year drought since we won a state championship in baseball. And there's been many talented teams, a few pro players, some talented coaching staffs, but they haven't brought that gold ball home. And last year, 2020, the season was cut short. There were only about 6 or 7 games played before everybody's spring was cut short. There was no state champion crowned. And coming back in the off season, there were lots of COVID protocols to overcome. And it took a tremendous amount of leadership and discipline by this team and the coaching staff. So we're here to honor them tonight. So I would just like to say congratulations and well done from the city of Jenks on your state.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Hey, who's your captain?
We really don't have a captain this year. All these guys have stepped up seniors. They really have.
Okay, who's the pitcher? Who's your start pitcher?
Well, Brooks Fowler is All-State this year, and he will be pitching an All-State game Sunday.
Okay.
And Brooks is assigned to go to Oral Roberts University.
What's your speed on the gun? 93. Are you kidding me? There's not a human in this room that can hit a baseball that you can throw. You know that? Isn't that crazy?
These guys, Brooks hit a home run in the extra innings, and so did Dylan Hammond hit a home run extra innings to capture the state title.
Congratulations on going to RU. Who's your home run hitter? Who's your star hitter?
That's me.
Okay. and hardest working guy in the room, who's the catcher?
That guy.
Oh my goodness, that's your guy right there.
He's the best catcher in the state of Oklahoma, hands down.
Is that a fact? Well, congratulations, you guys. And if you'll stick around for just a minute, we're going to make this official. And then I'd like to, Councilor Klein to come back and we'll get some pictures with you. And all we're going to ask you to do is turn around and face that way. It'll make it easier.
Real briefly, can you give us the names of your senior players?
Yeah, let's do that.
Rick Fowler, Cash Adams, Dylan Hammond, Nick Fling, Preston Patterson, Wyatt Trot, Parker Castleberry, and have a couple coaches with Kurt Burgess and Jeff Parsons. And the other guys are coaching other teams tonight, but we have a staff of 10 guys on our staff, and they all could be here, but the seniors are here.
Excellent.
Special group of seniors. So.
Well, great. Bear with me a moment as we rubber stamp this and make it official for you guys, if we would.
Would you like me to read this real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, we're going to present Coach Timmerman with a plaque tonight, so I'm going to read that through the microphone for everyone and then turn it over to Mayor Box to finish up. This plaque says, in honor of Jenks Trojan Baseball Day, June 2nd, 2021. 2021 6A State Champions, Head Coach Justin Timmerman, presented by the Jenks City Council. So that's what your plaque is.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, gentlemen, this will be fast. Not as fast as your fastball, but fast enough. City of Jenks, Oklahoma proclamation, Jenks Trojan Baseball Day. Whereas Jenks Trojan Baseball has a proud and winning tradition in 6A baseball over the last 25 years. And whereas the Jenks Trojan Baseball senior class has exhibited consistent winning baseball, finishing with a 4-year win-loss record of 77 wins and 46 losses. And whereas first-year Jenks Trojan Baseball head coach Justin Timmerman has provided stellar leadership while guiding the Trojans to their first 6A state baseball championship in 19 years. And now, therefore, I, Corey Box, Mayor of the City of Jenks, do hereby proclaim June 2nd, 2021 in the City of Jenks as Jenks Trojan Baseball Day. Congratulations, gentlemen. Who keeps this?
You got the face that way, she'll get some pictures. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Coach. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a new employer recognition. Chief Arthur, will you join us, sir?
Mayor and members of council, it's my pleasure tonight to introduce a couple of our newest officers. Some of you may have met them. They came in last October, November, but because of COVID and so forth, they started the academy. They were fortunate enough to have started in Owasso. We're doing some regional academies now, so we're pleased to do that. We encouraged that for a number of years and finally got to go through where they don't all have to go down to Ada and spend time away from their families. So they went to Owasso and they graduated last week. We had a little graduation. It was kind of a short notice thing. I apologize. The counselors didn't get much notice. Next time you will. I guarantee that. And so we'll do that in the future. We'll recognize them when they're so close, and we'll also try to get them when they're further away. So without further ado, a couple officers. First is Officer, I'm going to go with the tougher one. He says it's Luttrell, but I want to keep calling him Luttrell. So we might have to change that. It's Officer Luttrell. Yes. And I'll have you keep standing for a second. Officer Ramsey. And both of these gentlemen I've asked to put on the spot just a little bit more than we have in the past. And I'm going to ask them to tell the council and mayor a little bit about themselves. So Officer Ramsey, why don't you start?
Yeah, I'm Officer Ramsey. I grew up in Chelsea, Oklahoma, where I attended high school. Right after high school, I went and enlisted into the United States Army, where I was sent to Fort Drum, New York. I did one combat tour in 2018, and shortly after, I knew I wanted to get out and pursue my career in law enforcement. And it just worked out. Chief Arthur, City Manager Trout, and Mayor Box, and the rest of the councilmen gave me a shot, which I appreciate, and I look forward to serving the community. Thank you.
My name is Jaron Luttrell. I grew up in Glenville. I have a wife and 2 daughters. Mom's 5 and almost 7 months old. being local. I love the city. I've been in the city a bunch. Got to live in the city. But I enjoy being here, and I'm excited to serve the city.
Well, gentlemen, thank you, and I appreciate your service. We'd like you guys to come forward, and Councilor Murray and I, do you know this guy? He's a legend. You know the story? Okay, we'd love to have a picture with you if we could.
I tried to show them up when I went to the event with my uniform. They still.
You did get some cake, didn't you?
I did it a little bit. Did I not get off? I'm sorry.
Maybe. Can we do one of the break? Thank you. You stand. You stand. I see a break up you.
I'm not sure what that means.
Okay, he's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, we are at the portion of where if any citizens are present tonight that would like to speak on anything that is not currently on our agenda, you are welcome to come forward for citizens' comments. I don't see any. They don't live here. So we are good to go. Thank you very much. All right, let's get down to business. Item number 1, consideration and appropriate action relating to a request for approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve or otherwise?
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I would like to extract one piece of the minutes to discuss for a verbal change.
Okay, so you'd like to pull item A?
Yes, I'm sorry, pull item A to discuss after the vote on the rest of it.
Okay, can you make that a motion, if you would, please?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent minus item A at this moment.
Second.
We have a proper motion and a proper second. Let's vote, please.
Klein? Yes. Short?
Yes.
OJ?
Yes.
Kaylin?
Yes.
Isabel? Yes. Murray? Yes. Mayor Box?
Yes. Item A.
Mr. Mayor and council members, on our meeting last time, there was discussion on the Pinkston's property in Quarry Lakes, I believe. And in that, in making the motion to approve it, I had discussed the fact that not that there was any accountability for anyone to actually be on the account of what happens, but the minutes came out to say that it would be the responsibility of the property owners for any adverse impact. And I had made mention that the developer might step up and do something on that, but it was, again, not the city's responsibility. And so I just would like to change the word there, meaning the homeowners, to developers' responsibility. Not that we're holding anybody to that, but at least in the verbal content of the minutes, I'd like to change that.
And at what page in the agenda, what page in the minutes are we talking
It'll
about?
be page 5, number 2.
Page 5, number 2.
It's the third line from the bottom on 2
Okay.
in the
The
minutes.
sentence starts with Council Murray stated he believes that any adverse impact from the development onto someone else's property should be as their responsibility. I'd like to change the word there to the developer's responsibility, not the city's. So I'm just changing the one word there. Not that we're holding anybody responsible. We're still saying the city's not responsible, but at least I wanted to put in the minutes that I was trying to reach out to help.
Okay. All right, good explanation. You want to kind of summarize that into a motion? We could.
So my motion is that we will approve all of A's minutes with just the verbal change from there to the developer's responsibility in number 2 or the number 2 item. That is my motion.
Good with that? Yes. Okay. We have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a proper motion, we have proper second. Let's vote on approval of item A in the consent agenda.
Klein,
Yes.
George, OJ,
Yes.
Kaylin,
Yes.
Murray? Yes. Mayor Miles?
Yes, so item 2, we've got a little bit out of order, but consideration and appropriate action related to the item.
Apologies.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're very welcome. We got a little out of order, so item 2 is consideration and appropriate action relating to items removed from the consent agenda. Do we need to call the roll again, or we just basically did for number 2? You okay with that? Okay with that? Okay, very well. All right, item number 3, public hearing of the proposed budget for fiscal year 2021/2022. Mr. Robert Sauceda, we are on page 69. You're following along in your packets. Good evening, sir.
Mayor, members of council, we are at that moment again this year to pass a budget for our next fiscal year. Last June, council and the budget committee approved our biannual budget, year 1, which is our current year, and year 2, which is the fiscal year starting July 1st. And since we can only pass a budget, one budget per year, the year 2 is actually a financial plan. And before the fiscal year starts, staff reviews the year 2 budget, proposes any changes based on year-to-date performance. We reviewed our current year 2 financial plan, made some adjustments, and submitted it to the budget committee, who approved it unanimously. Some of the changes from the original year 2 budget, and I'll just do some of the highlights. On sales tax, originally we had anticipated for Simon to open summer of 2021. And unfortunately, that's not going to happen. So we removed the impact that we built into the budget regarding sales tax. However, the current year-to-date performance on sales tax has currently outperformed our budget. We're, I think, at 9.6 million, and we still have June's deposit. So we could potentially finish the year at about 10.4 million. So the original sales tax budget was 9.8 million. So we revised that number up to 10.3 million. Another change to the budget regarding expenses.
And I would just mention that the benefit of, well, to some degree, the benefit of what our plan was for this coming fiscal year related to Simon, even though we had projected an increase in sales tax with the TIF and with the economic development agreement that we had with Simon, 2 pennies of sales tax, which would be our operating, what we would be using for operations, was already going back to Simon. So we hadn't budgeted 2 of the pennies for operations. And so we, operationally, we didn't really have to make too many changes related to Simon not opening. It's mainly related to the capital budget and the vision extension sales tax. So, operationally, we didn't have to make too many changes, and hopefully when they pick back up, we can basically use similar numbers for whatever year they anticipate opening. So,
right. On the expense side, some personnel changes about, I believe, the fall of last year. We asked council to convert 2 part-time dispatch positions into 1 full-time position. We currently have 4. So with this budget, we essentially converted all 4 positions into 2 full-time positions based on feedback from the police department and their troubles of recruiting and retaining talent. So we changed that to a full-time position that would be benefit eligible.
and part of the issue with the trying to find employees is when you get part-time dispatchers, it's hard to get part-time employees to begin with, and then once they get trained up, they will go find a full-time position. So we thought that combining these would both make it easier to recruit and then retain as well. So
And then another change, due to the completion of our water meter or smart water meter project, we currently had 2 positions in utility billing that would go out and read the meters. After the meter project, we decided there was only a need for 1 position. So we reassigned that budget to animal control based on feedback from the police department on providing backup for our current animal control specialist, Fred. Our health insurance premiums, those are increasing 2%, so that's incorporated into the budget. And then, of course, the cost of living increases, and that's essentially the highlights for the city. We reviewed the master fee schedule, made some minor adjustments based on staff feedback, most of it engineering, and the rest of it being increases to our utility rates. And then some of the changes that you'll see in our special funds, the majority of that, when it comes to the funds that relate to our geo bonds, some of those projects have been rolled forward as staff couldn't address them in the current fiscal year. So we rolled some of that budget forward. So that is Fund 10 in the city funds. And also, not sure if we want to talk about JPWA as a whole as well, but or save that for the next meeting. If you have any questions.
We might just save the JPWA for the next meeting.
Yeah, I agree. Is that it, Mr. Salcedo?
Yes, sir.
Any questions or comments from the council on my right? Councilor Lynn?
Yeah, I sent you guys an email today concerning this increase. Is this where you want to talk about it?
Well, the fee schedule is in the city, but the rates for water and sewer would technically be the Public Works Authority. Right. So perhaps we can wait until the Public Works Authority meeting and we'll address it. I know.
Well, it came in the county. Oh, maybe
Yeah.
I put it in.
Because it's one fee schedule that encompasses both entities.
You're okay with that, Councilor Lynn?
Do we want to just address it now and then?
We can.
Let's just go ahead and we can just address it now since it's in the fee schedule.
Sure. So let me give you some highlights or run down the
Well,
JPWA.
Can we,
let's just take the questions
Okay,
first.
let's start off with, can you read the emails to the rest of the council? Did everybody get the email?
No, I just sent it to you and
Okay.
councilors and Chris and Mr. Carr.
Can we
I got
go ahead and-
the email. Let me just read it to you.
Very well, Councilor Lynn.
It seems the budget will be voted on tonight will have a rate increase of water and sewer of 5% and 10% respectively. That is a total of 15% increase overall. Why is this hefty increase needed? Will it be dedicated money to a certain project? Was any concern on how this will affect the senior citizens that live on fixed income considered? They are already being asked to pay for a $20 million bond that they will not receive any benefit from. Now this additional increase for basic needs, will original town receive any benefit from this increase? Can a freeze be put on these costs for, say, a person over 65 making less than 35 or 40,000 a year, considering that all prices just for basic needs are going up? This would be a great plus for the city to help the seniors. So I had a conversation with Mr. Sharp today about this, and I'm still trying to understand, I'm not a numbers person, so I have to have help in understanding the numbers because we're adding more burdens on the seniors this way. That's why I'm trying to come to some solution so that they're not so burdened, since we've already burdened them with the $20 million. This comes on the heels of that. I can hear my phone. So if we could discuss on how we can, or what would be feasible to relieve that burden off of the seniors that are on fixed income, I don't know.
And if I could just touch on so the wastewater treatment plant, the wastewater collection system, our water infrastructure, we have to maintain in perpetuity. Our costs are going up. And then we have the capital investments that we need to make based on our wastewater treatment plant master plan. I believe Mr. Carr sent that out to council last week perhaps, but it was presented to council, I think, in 2018. And that includes something like $30 million over the course of the next 20 years for the wastewater treatment plant. We, the city council or the Public Works Authority in December of 2019 approved or issued $14 million in revenue bonds that we pay about $700,000 a year in debt service. And so as we see these things coming down the line that are we need to make significant investments into our infrastructure. And then, I know that you mentioned in the email that costs are going up related to just consumer prices, but prices related to maintaining the wastewater and water system are also going up. And so that's the rationale for the increase. The city of Jenks, or the Jenks Public Works Authority, has some of the lowest, our existing rates are some of the lowest in Tulsa County. And so, none of us are really paying the true cost of our wastewater treatment plant or wastewater collection system. And this is just trying to get us a little bit closer. And I know that the sewer rate is increase that we've proposed is 10% and the water rate is 5%. But because sewer, the bill you receive for sewer is tied to your water consumption, it's about, close to a third of what your water consumption is. So your sewer bill is always lower than your water bill. So even though it's a 10% increase on sewer, the effective overall increase on a water and sewer bill combined would be closer to 5 or 6%, not adding them together to get 15%. So, and as it relates to the seniors, we have an existing refuse collection discount of, I think it's $4 for seniors. And so I think the regular rate is around $15 and the senior rate is $11. So historically, we have done something to offset any increase to seniors. So I know that you and I had talked about the potential for offering, just like we offer to those same people that have the discount on refuse, having maybe an additional $1 or $2 potentially for the water, or just an additional $1 or $2 off the bill, overall bill.
What were your thoughts on that?
I think that's good.
Okay.
Because that's going to relieve them. I mean, I know $1 or $2 to me or you is, we go pay $5 for a cup of coffee. But to them, it's a little bit different, when they're looking at their pennies. And so that was my concern, plus the fact I've already gotten phone calls, with the recycle, as I shared with Chris today, on why are they still charging us for recycle when the recycle place burned up, So I've already gotten those calls on it, and I think that's $3 on our bill, something in that neighborhood. So that's why I thought, well, okay, because it's going to happen with the senior population, and they'll have to have something to take to them, So thank you for that.
What would you like to, you don't need to make a motion now, but we're gonna need one before the night's over. What would you propose would be a good compromise to make?
Well, we talked about dollars and cents today too, whenever we talked, and he used his water bill, Christopher used his water bill as an example. I don't know what everybody's water bill runs, but I thought, this was my thought, if we took the average water bill of council, all of our water bills, and then make a determination. That's probably not even feasible, but $2 would be good.
And that's off of the refuse portion of the total bill.
It could, however, we would figure out a way with our utility billing system to just take an amount off of the bill.
And how many citizens do we have enrolled in this program that are receiving this discount already?
600.
So for the record, we have potentially, we're looking at $1,200 per month in less revenue if you guys want to go ahead and consider this tonight. If $2 is the number, okay?
What is the age of the requirements for the reduced refuse?
So there is an application that you could submit to utility billing. I don't know the specifics. I can ask Walter.
It's 65 to qualify. Thank you.
Is it just age based?
Is there any lower income option for this, or is it just age based?
No, lower income options.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Are really more based upon the fact that they can apply or ask us to help them get in contact with NFPs that help with this. And we facilitate that with them. And then those NFPs contact us, and that may be for a month, that may be for 3 months. And the expectation is that this person is supposed to get back to work, and then they would come off of that, and then the funds would be used for someone else.
I think that's kind of, if somebody is experiencing financial hardship, there are alternatives that we refer them to, 6 nonprofits. But I think the question was on the trash service, elderly and disabled, at a reduced rate. If it's just based on age.
It's purely based on age.
And they have to apply. You just don't get this discount when you turn 65.
That's correct.
Okay. Any other questions from the council? This is not really the time to make a motion on this. We'll just make the motion after we finish the entire budget discussion. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Oh, yeah.
So just to kind of throw out some numbers out there, on the lower end of consumption, say 2,000 gallons for the month, this increase would translate into a $2.95 increase for that month, or a 5.68%. The average consumption for a resident is 6,000 gallons, and that translates into a $5.03 increase for the month, or a 5.92%. Yes.
We talk good.
Oh, sorry. So a 6,000 gallon consumption bill would increase by $5.03 or a 5.92%. Just kind of let you know the average consumption or what kind of numbers we're looking at here. So obviously if a user uses more, they, on the dollar basis, they will pay more. So those at the lower end of the consumption scale would pay less than somebody 2,000 gallons, 8,000 gallons. Even though on a percentage basis it's the same, on a dollar basis, the one consuming more water pays more.
Okay. Very well. Any other questions from council on the left? Any questions, comments? Okay. Anything else, Mr. Salceda?
No, I think we solicit all of feedback.
Okay.
Are we on questions on just the overall budget, or are we still on the water part? Because I have a few questions, specific budget wise.
No, we can, you have questions on anything. I think we're done talking about water. So this
Can we
is,
make a decision on how much to take off of the bill?
you can make a motion and yeah, we'll go ahead and vote on it unless you want to discuss it now. Your proposal was $2. Okay.
We can do it all in one. I don't know how you want to do this.
I'll just take questions
Yeah.
and then come back.
Okay. Well, we can take questions on it now, but is there anybody that wants to
On
on the entire budget? Yeah. We'll go ahead and hold off on that. We can make that amendment in the motion. Councilor Murray.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Page 110, under Finance Administration Department, at the bottom, it says list of capital, and it talks about year 1 and year 2 for tornado sirens. I guess the question is, is that for one siren, or is that for several, or how many is that getting?
So that is an item that kind of has been there for multiple years, and it's used when needed. So if a tornado siren goes out, there is budget. So we don't necessarily have a tornado siren identified to replace, but there is the flexibility if one goes out, that there is money allocated to replace or repair it.
So this is more for replacement, because I think I talked to the city manager before about the fact, like in Dutchess Crossing and Providence Hills, I'm not sure of locations of sirens in that direction. I may be wrong.
I hear them. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I didn't know where they were placed offhand, and so I was just curious if this means we were adding some. And I didn't know if we've done a study on areas that need it, and who would take care of that study or not.
We can talk to the police department about that. But this is kind of like when we have, money for air conditioners, we generally just always allocate money for air conditioners because invariably some of them need.
We'll go out right
Yeah.
now. I just saw that and I thought, well, that may need adding some, so I thought I'd ask. Page 116 under police department, at the bottom, talks about the budget changes, and it doesn't specify an increase, the percentage of increase in personnel expenses. Do we have an idea of that?
The negotiations are still currently
Okay.
ongoing.
Thought that could be the issue there.
And were you
Fire
looking,
and police.
were you looking for a percentage?
Well, because there is a percentage on some other
Mm-hmm.
departments, and even though I wasn't sure, because there's one under fire department, but I didn't know if they were still in negotiations or not.
Yeah.
So, but it shows on page 121, a 4.9% increase in their budget, but they're still under negotiations. So I didn't know if that's going to be effective.
And that is also impacted by the change in administration within the same department. So the fire chief, assistant fire chief, the secretary, they're not part of the negotiation.
Negotiations, correct.
And also some of the expense is to true up perhaps the previous budget, the current year's budget. We didn't consider maybe all of the expenses. So some of the change could be incorporating some of the expense we currently incur into the budget.
And it may be just the way it's verbiage, but back in the police one on 116, it says to accommodate the increase in personnel expenses, but on the fire departments on 121, it says the increase is largely due to increase in personnel and capital. And I'm like, okay, great, I'm excited. We're going to increase the personnel, but yet there's no showing of increase in the fire department personnel, but yet the verbiage says an increase in personnel.
I think it's just
Expense.
personnel expense is what.
Okay, well, that's why I said
Just
if there's a verbiage that's
Yeah,
missing.
I think it's just the wording.
You just got me excited. that
You're
we're gonna
thinking
have more
manpower?
firefighters.
Oh, you're thinking
Yeah, I was
manpower.
thinking we're gonna have more firefighters, so I was hoping that's why I was trying to bring that out. And then if we could go over to page 234, and 235, when it breaks down actual pay ranges, that may be not too far ahead of now.
You bear with us a moment. 234?
234 and 235, down at the bottom of 234, it lists firefighters probationary. And then over on 235, it shows police officer probationary and part-time. And then later on down there, it shows firefighter, but there's not is there not a separate category for the police officer as a full-time, like there is for firefighter?
So this one is,
Yeah, if you look under number 26 on page 235, it shows police officer, in parentheses, probationary and part-time. And under 29, number 5 shows just firefighter. So there's not a distinguishing police officer only.
the employees governed by CBA, by the agreement, do not necessarily fit into our pay plan for the city and JPWA. So including firefighter at range 29, that is an error, but the probationary should be in there because they are governed by the city and the pay plan.
Yeah, the firefighter probationary is on the earlier page under number 25, but it
Right.
just, the police officer has probationary and part-time, but it doesn't distinguish just police officer. That's why I guess the question is.
So to match that, we would strike firefighter from range 29, because the firefighters and the police department who are actually under the contracts are not governed by our pay plan. They are governed by their own respective contracts.
Okay.
So we'll need to include that in the motion to make that correction.
Well,
Well,
No,
I don't know.
no,
I don't know, it's and if it needs to be, just a clarification.
I guess with, yeah.
It doesn't, I mean, it'll show assistant chief and chiefs, but it doesn't show, it shows commander, but it doesn't show like a firefighter, like a captain or a driver. They're in different pay grades, but that's by their contract. But I didn't know if it's something that has to fit in a range.
Okay.
This won't necessarily influence anything. What governs their pay is the contract.
Okay.
So the contract trumps this.
But this still gives us an idea about where the contractual agreement is on their pay.
At some point, I guess. I'm sure this is just firefighter was listed in range 29 at some point, and it's been there until you pointed it out.
And it's remarkable that you pointed it out for all these years.
It's just trying to be studious. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Murray. Any other questions or comments from the council?
Yes.
Councilor Lynn.
On the list of capital on Public Works Department, I'm not sure how many understand.
What page, Councilor Lynn?
57, and the Public Works Department, or at the top of the page, it says 127 or 261.
Oh, 127.
Down on the list of capital, there are several lift stations that are listed. The one that's missing that I think is the most critical is lift station 1. The reason that I think it's most critical is I think that there needs to be a evaluation with all of the development that we're planning on doing that will flow through the first, and it is the original lift station in Jenks. And currently it handles all the river walks, and please, Mr. Carr, everybody, correct me if I'm wrong with the information, but it handles all the discharge from Riverwalk, the aquarium, the hotel, everything that is on the east side of town goes through the original lift station. So considering that we are going to really stress out this antiquated system, I would like to see something in the budget regarding an evaluation of how much more stress it can handle before we get into a situation that could be. And I can tell you it has happened because I have had raw sewage flowing through my alley, which all of this comes in my alley. So that's what I would like to.
But for clarification, that was a long time ago that the raw sewer, I mean, that was when you said Randy Ewing, which would be decades or more ago.
Yes, thank you.
And we've since Robert, do you want to mention the updates that have been done to?
Mr. Carr. Microphone next time.
I must apologize that I wasn't prepared for the dates on all of this, but the first master plan we did for wastewater was wastewater collection system master plan. And that master plan included all the lift stations, all their present needs, past needs, and future needs. And the first lift station that was worked on was lift station 1, which is one you're talking about. And I think that was probably about 5 or 6 years ago that we did work on that station to upgrade the pumps and make sure that we had the capacity in that station. So that's already been addressed. council, so there's no need to have that on the capital plan at this time.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but we just had trouble back there 18 months ago about where we had sinkholes because of issues. The sewer line, which I have pictures of, is 30 foot under the ground because we're on a water table. It happened to both in my alley, which they took in a great deal of my yard, backyard, and also Mr. Kent Fisher, who lives on the corner there by me, at First and Beaver. And he had a very large sinkhole, and it took a lot of work to get both of those sinkholes done and some repair done at the lift station. That's what brought me to mind, because I know the work was done. It's got a big color sign on it, and I was appreciative of that whenever it came through, because sinkholes are kind of common occasionally in the alley there. And so it is so deep they have to shore up with walls so that the guys can get down there. That's why I thought with the recent issues that we've had with lift station 1, with the planned development, that it might behoove us as city, not only to look at the lift station, but get an evaluation. I know you were here when the aquarium went live. You know, there's stories about what happened all that time. So that was my thinking, is preparing for any possible issues we may have if a developer comes in. We don't want issues with that. We want everything to be great. So it's preparation for what we're hoping to maintain or to bring through that oldest part of town. That's my thinking.
And I understand what your thinking is, but the master plan also looked at the capacity of the collection system and addressed where we might need to do some improvements on the collection system, and that was not one of them. But there's going to be places where we're going, because of different conditions, that we're going to have to do some repairs on things. An example is right across the street at the library. There's a sinkhole that developed over there last week, and we're digging it out now to do some repairs on. We're going to have those in various places around town. We can't predict where all that's going to take place, but we do have operating budget that we can address repairs that come up like that, like we did when we did the repairs in the alley. That was not a capital project per se, but it was a maintenance item.
Were the repairs in the alley somehow directly related to the condition of lift station 1? Are they tied together directly?
Not lift station 1. Look, when we were looking at the lift station, we were looking at the pumping capacity, what was projected to go in there for flows into the station, and we upgraded the pumps there. And then after that happened, some of the things outside the lift station occurred. We probably would have addressed that at the time. But we didn't. I think there was a section of pipe that was probably was repaired at the same time the pumps went in, but it's not related to what happened in the alley there. Okay. They were totally separate issues.
So the survey says, does it tell us how much additional flow it can handle? What I'm hearing you say, and so correct me if I'm wrong, I'm hearing you say it can handle the additional development without any problems.
There were some collection system improvements that were recommended. One of them we've already addressed with down at 106 and Elm lift station. We're looking at the force main and rerouting that into the gravity line by the PSO power plant, and there's other places around town that we have to do some things on also as growth occurs, but not presently like some of the other ones that were identified in the bond issue.
So what you're saying is, out of all the lift stations, lift station lift station one is not a primary concern for you right now?
No, it's already been taken care of.
Okay. Any idea when the next regularly scheduled maintenance might be? How often do we provide regular preventative maintenance on the lift station? Is it whenever it breaks? Daily. Okay.
That's what our contract operator looks at the lift stations also, and we're doing improvements periodically at various lift stations.
Do you feel that lift station one is prepared or adequately prepared to meet today's need plus maybe 5 years from now should somebody build 10 more apartment complexes up and down in Aquarian Place?
I don't remember any other improvements being recommended.
Okay.
In the master plan, and that was a 30-year master plan.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Carr? Councilor Short?
As we start developing kind of on the other side of the turnpike, south side of the turnpike, Simon, et cetera, or is that rerouted to the 106th? I'm sorry, I don't know all the details. Or is that projected, as that grows, is that projected capacity reevaluated for either an additional lift station or max, or look at the capacity of the motor, the pumps at the 106. Can you help us understand that a little bit?
Well, 106 takes flow from the west, and then it directs it down towards the wastewater treatment plant. Like if you're talking about with the development in River District, they're going to be putting a lift station in River District also that's going to go into the same collection system. That's why when we put the proposal together and the scope of services for 106, we asked them to look at the collection system downstream and make sure that everything could go together adequately and get to the treatment plant. So yeah, when developers come along, we don't stay in a little box and say, okay, we're just looking at you. We look around us and we ask for a look at the system at a whole.
So the Simon south of the turnpike, that doesn't feed into Caitlin's station?
No.
Thank you.
So the master plan does accommodate for the growth that specifically with Simon and the River District. How many lift stations do you think you know what, we don't even need to know that tonight. That's future. Any more questions? Okay. Councilor Lynn?
I do, but a different one on here.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, please.
Okay. On 128, it's the First Street Sandpiper reconstruction that's listed here. An explanation a little bit on what exactly, because I see $400,000. Talk about that just a little bit.
Over the last probably 6 to 8 years, we've tried to look about every 2 years at the road conditions of every street in the city. And based upon the assessment, we have developed a ranking criteria for rehabilitation all the way to reconstruction. And there were a few street projects that we did in the last few years that were total reconstructions. One was 2nd Street, north of K. First Street was another one that was in the area that needed some work done on it also. And we thought we would have had it done by now, but it took a little longer to put the project together than what I was expecting initially. And it was one that was, I think it was programmed for this current fiscal year that we had to push into next fiscal year. So we're doing a reconstruction of First Street also.
How's it going to be evaluated? And I have a purpose for asking this. When Chris Robinson was here, him and I had a couple of 3 discussions about it. So I'm needing clarification. So what we're doing here, let me think that again, reconstruction. So when we say reconstruction, Are we talking about overlay? Are we talking about shaving, removing the street that's there and adding new pavement? Because any elevation there, it will increase shedding east. And he said, I'm sorry, according to Chris Robinson, he said it would be raising the street about 2 inches, which is
I might be talking about a different First Street. Which First Street are you talking about?
Oh, I'm talking about First Street from Main going south.
Okay, well, that one's under design right now, and it's not going to, it's part of a bond issue, and it's not the one I was talking about was north of K.
Oh.
But this First Street, we've had as a project for a number of years. It's been, matter of fact, we had a telephone call today with the railroad, trying to figure out what the railroad would let us do on the west side of the road. But no, we're not shedding water to the east. That would be a bad engineering decision. It's going to be collected and taken stay on First Street and be taken down to the collection system that ultimately goes over to Veterans Park.
Okay, well, it didn't specify, and I've been trying to get First Street on the south side of Main, something done to it. It's pitiful.
Yeah, well, that's why it's on the list.
For the benefit of those that are watching, reconstruction, does that imply demolition of the current road and starting over?
Reconstruction is totally redoing the road, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Now, one more question, please.
Okay.
Probably in March or so because of the flooding issues and I'm guessing at the month. Y'all can help. Because of the flooding, not ponding, not, it's just the flooding from First Street actually to Fourth Street, but mainly from First Street to Third Street because we have the big barge there at Third Street that runs parallel to Third Street. But we approved for a design to relieve that flooding in that area that would be just south of Duncan. So it was supposed to open up the barges. It's supposed to open up that, I call it a little ravine between those two houses because it was a little bit difficult because the younger one of them was just not happy with working with the city to get it done, but it finally came about and everything was approved, I thought, to make that happen. Where are we with that? And I didn't see it anywhere in this.
We're working out the final details of the design of the pipes to get underneath Duncan and out between the houses. We've got the easement worked out. We just have to get the junction box worked out. We haven't finalized that design yet.
Do you know about how much longer that's going to take?
If I could, I'd be an excellent crystal ball person, but no, I don't right at this point. But that's the latest report I've gotten from engineering.
Because I just didn't see it on this list. So that's why.
Any more questions, Councilor Lynn?
Okay.
Tell us what page you're on.
Yeah, I am. I skipped over a couple. I'm sorry for being so wordy with some of this. I will bring up this because it's a large amount. On page 141. And it's under the transfers out. And it's Fund 21, and it's economic development. And it's an increase of 480%. So that caught my eye. I'm all for economic development. I just want to know where the money's going.
Good question. So about 5-7 years ago, the city invested about $1 million to reconstruct 101st Street south of Research on the condition that, and this was funded out of Fund 21, which is our economic development fund, on the condition that Fund 21 be repaid the amount borrowed from that fund. So over the past 5-6 years, we've transferred 100,000 from Fund 10 over to Fund 21 to repay this loan, intra-fund loan. And we decided that Fund 10 has the capacity to just go ahead and pay it, as opposed to letting this go on for another 5-6 years, that we can just send the money over to Fund 21 from Fund 10 to pay off that note between the two funds. So this is all related to the research program.
And this is just a simple question, because on all of these that I see as I go through here, it has personal services. Some of it, so help me out with what does personal services mean?
Like at 3.3%. Yeah, so we just decided to just send the money over to Fund 21 and have that settled. Yeah, sure.
159. It looks like, and this is clarification because we transferred it out. There's an annual.
Can you turn your mic on, Councilman?
Oh.
Thank you.
Yes, it will.
Maybe you could repeat that.
This is on the TIF district, number 3. This is, I think, Highway 75. Yeah. So on that, the annual outlays, we have a budget of freezing the deaths. So it says 600,000, and we transferred out the fund balance 600,000. So is there a relationship between those two? You see what I'm talking about?
Between the annual resources and annual outlays?
Annual
Because
outlays.
the resources would be money coming in, and then we're just sending that back out. So money comes in through the TIF, and then that money just goes back out to the developer to repay them for the public infrastructure.
That's what because it was like there's 600, and then it's 600 left. So.
So when it comes to our TIFs, none of that money is actually the city's. So some of the money, $1 comes in, we, depending on the TIF, but it's usually 75 and 25%. 75% goes to the developer, and 25% go to the taxing entities. So it's essentially $1 in, $1 out, with a little bit of a tiny difference.
And Public Works. I just have a question. Water sales industry, we're increasing at 13%, page 163.
Yes. So industrial sales, or water sales for industrial, we have one client that is Green Country Energy. The agreement is currently, we will charge them cost plus a 25% markup. The usage is all over the place. So it's kind of unpredictable how much they're going to consume because that is dependent on how much energy they need to generate, which is then dependent on how much energy is actually needed. So it's very hard to guess what their consumption is going to be, thus how much our revenue is going to be. So based on the current year-to-date performance, they're almost at $4 million. So we decided to up that in anticipation that next year will be on trend and give us a little bit more flexibility if they do consume more than what we budgeted.
So the stormwater sewer fees, that's going up 32%.
Yes, that currently in our fee schedule, it's $3 per meter per month. And due to the demand citywide for stormwater issues, the decision was to propose a $1 increase to that. So from $3 to $4 a month per meter. And that's the increase there.
Was that explained in the overview?
Discussion.
I believe. I don't know, you can just tell me yes, it is, I can't say. $1 increase in the meter.
Yes, stormwater, we're proposing $1 increase to.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, all right, thanks. All right. Anything else, Councilor Lynn?
Thank you.
Thank you. Of that we came prepared. Anyone else on council? Anybody on my right? Anyone on the left? Okay, if there's no further questions or comments from the council, we'll close comments and questions to council and open up to the public. Does anyone in the public like to speak or comment on the proposed budget? It's item number 3. Looks like we have staff members here only, so we'll go ahead and close the floor to public comment. You don't have to call it full time, do you? No. That's true, okay. Very well. All right, no comment from the council, no comments from the public. Let's move on to item number 4. Item 4 is a request to approve, deny, or amend resolution 2021-06, appropriating and approving the fiscal year 2021-2022 annual budget. It's probably the same thing. Okay. Yeah, okay, now number 4, okay. I gotta tell you one thing, Mr. Carr, the lower lights are better, but it makes it a little bit difficult to read. I'm not a verdict out whether or not we're gonna, maybe we just need to get a dimmer space. Well, that plus these new contacts, the number 4 is looking hell the same to me. Here we go. Okay, item number 4, request to approve, deny, or amend resolution 736, appropriating and approving the fiscal year 2021-2022 annual budget, providing for a pay plan and benefits program for the city of Jenks, Oklahoma, and providing for an effective date of July 1st, 2021. Council may approve, deny, or amend both the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget document and resolution 736. Page 221 in your packet, Mr. Salcedo.
I'll just make one quick comment, based on feedback from you. Last year we voted 5 times per entity. This year we combined it into one resolution. So 5 into 1. You're here to serve.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion on number 4? Any questions or comments?
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this where I add the amendment to the seniors.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'll give it a shot.
So before you do that, any last questions from council?
And I would suggest saying like amending the master fee schedule to include a $2 discount for senior citizens, because this would be on the master fee schedule.
Councilman will take that motion whenever you are ready. Take your time.
I make a motion that we approve the request. And amend resolutions 736 appropriating and approving the fiscal year 2022 annual budget, providing for a pay plan and benefits program for the city of Jenks, Oklahoma, providing for an effective date of July 1, 2021, with the amendment of giving senior citizens age 65 a $2 discount on the fee increase for water and sewer.
It will be a $2 discount on the
Discount.
utility bill.
Happy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a proper motion and we have a proper second for item number 4. Let's vote, please.
Klein? Yes. Short?
Yes.
OJ?
Yes.
Caitlin?
Yes.
Isabel? Yes. Murray? Yes. Mayor Fox?
Yes. Thank you, Councilor Lynn.
And
Excellent work.
thank you, Robert Soseda and his staff. They spend a lot of time putting together this 400-page document. So I appreciate your hard work.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, item number 5, the request to approve right-of-way utility easement closure 21-79, a request by Cozort Homes to close a portion of the utility easement, the general location being 716 East 130th Street, South, Mrs. Hilton. You're on page 244.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, and staff. This is a straightforward request. First time in 20 years that Cozort companies have requested a variance to a utility easement. The drawings were prepared by the draftsman. They did not follow the plat. They followed some other document they had been given, which was incorrect. And when the home was built, they went back in to do their as-built drawing, and that was when it was discovered. So this is just to remedy the encroachment and create a clear title for them to move forward as they settle and over that whole transaction. So if you look on page 245 of 261, says encroachment relief through an easement closure and ultimate vacation of the easement in district court. The city itself can only close the easement, and then they'll have their attorney or engineer sometimes goes to district court and goes through the vacation proceedings. The encroachment is not into the build lines, so that was good news. I said it's about 5 feet, but it's closer to 3 on one side and 4 on the other. Staff and TAC and Planning Commission recommend approval of the easement closure request.
Thank you. Any questions, council, on my right? Any questions on the left? The motion, please.
Second.
We have a proper motion and a second for item number 5, so please.
Klein? Yes. Short?
Yes.
OJ?
Yes.
Caitlin?
Yes.
Isabel? Yes. Murray? Yes. Mayor Fox?
Yes, item 6, request to approve ordinance number 1555 related to right-of-way utility easement closure 21-79.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second on item 6, so
Klein? Yes. Short?
Yes.
OJ?
Yes.
Caitlin?
Yes.
Isabel? Yes. Murray? Yes. Mayor Fox?
yes, item 7, request to approve the emergency clause for ordinance number 1555, making it effective immediately upon passage.
Second.
Second.
We have a proper motion and a second. Item 7, vote please.
Klein? Yes. Short?
Yes.
OJ?
Yes.
Caitlin?
Yes.
Isabel? Yes. Murray? Yes. Mayor Fox?
Yes, item 8, request to approve, deny, or amend ordinance number 1556, An ordinance amending Chapter 5, Business and Occupations, Article 1, Section 5-1-1, License tax levied on certain persons, etc., to amend subsection A-14 to add language providing time limits on operating in one location, repealing all ordinances or parts thereof in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and declaring an emergency. Item page 254.
And Mayor and all members of council, if you were, some of you will recall, but sometime back in, I believe it was May of 2020, when we had the pandemic, we had neighborhoods that wanted to have food trucks come visit for an evening, and, you know, provide some sort of safe outdoor activity for the neighborhood to do. And so we came in and amended sections of our code related to food trucks, just trying to allow these food trucks to come in. And our, you know, the basic understanding and request from the neighborhoods was, can you please just change the ordinance so that food trucks can come in, they can get a permit, come visit and leave. And I don't think the intent from the neighborhoods or the intent from staff or council at the time was to just allow food trucks to stay on city streets indefinitely. But you know, however you see it, food trucks have been able to, the way that ordinance was written, basically come park on a public space, park on a public street, if they've been invited by the adjacent property owner. And, you know, the way this was written was we wanted food trucks to be able to go out to, like, say, a cul-de-sac, or go out to a neighborhood HOA park or pool. And so the HOA, being the owner of the adjacent property, invites the food truck. They come and park on, say, a city street, but they've been invited by the HOA. And we did it that way so the food trucks aren't just going and setting up shop, you know, randomly in neighborhoods without being invited to do so. But I guess the unintended consequence of that is food trucks have been, you know, at least one has parked on just off of Main Street because they've been invited by the adjacent property owner, and they've been there for months on end. We have another food truck that is now on Main, and the issue is just a little bit more complicated than you would think it should be, because we're involving finance here related to the permits and the fees. We have legal, we have, you know, the actual land use, which I think is kind of one of the core questions we have here. And hopefully this will be addressed in a comprehensive fashion in the UDO, which hopefully we'll be seeing in the next couple months. But in the meantime, we've had numerous people just bring this up, like how can a food truck just sit on a public street and compete with a brick and mortar business right down the street? And so we're just trying to bring this to council as a discussion and or action item. And we did the best we could in the short term, trying to amend the existing ordinance that would still allow food trucks to go into neighborhoods, but maybe alter it in a way so that we don't have the unintended consequences.
So this is not the be all end all of our food truck debate today.
No.
Okay. Yeah, it must have bold that they're doing that. Any questions or comments from the council on the right side? I'm hoping we have some healthy discussion. This nothing but fireworks. Thanks, Councilor Lynn.
Yes, I have. If this is just an action thing, these are just thoughts I had as I read through this on how to look at this, to bring out something that I just learned recently about food trucks. And for food trucks, we actually, as a city, created a place for food trucks to go, and it's not on Main, and it's in the Commons, and there's even hookups. I broke down to the Commons when I heard this, and there's all kinds of hookups in that area for food trucks to come and go. So that's something that we need to kind of keep in mind too as we go through this. But I'd also like to keep in mind too, what kind of liability insurance. I saw that we were gonna require liability insurance, that like or auto insurance, you know, we have choices, you know, we can start out with the lowest 10, 20, 10, or we can go up as high as 100, 300, you know, on our liability insurance. So I think that we need to think about what are we as a city going to require liability wise on the insurance. That's something that we need to think about. And what is the cost of the permit? How long is the permit going to be for? The other thing is, I know that, and I've had a couple of conversations with citizens about this, about how do we know how healthy it is in there? I know there's a Tulsa County Health Certificate, but how many times does Tulsa County Health, or how many times are we going to require as a city council, require an update on certificates that they're clean and trustworthy to operate? What does the liability insurance cover? Is it going to cover, say, heaven forbid, that they start a fire, an adjacent building, because our little town that we have down there will blow up like kindling. Who's going to be responsible for that as we go through that? So that's another thought that I had on that. The other thing is, it says here about they can be here, if I understand this correctly, they can be here for 3 consecutive days or a total of 5 days in any 30-day period without first obtaining. Who's going to monitor that? You know, they should not be allowed. My opinion, should not be allowed in town without a permit. That way we have got control of what's going on in town. This is too loose, again, in my opinion. So the question is, how long is the license going to be issued for? How much is it going to cost? Who's going to monitor? You know, there's a litany of questions, and these are just a few I thought of that I'd throw out there.
Any more comments, Council? All right. Comments on the left. Councilor Short. I'm sorry, Councilor Klein.
I'll be brief. Last year during 2020, my neighborhood, Stonehorse, benefited greatly from the change in food truck rules. So that was a great move by the city to do that. But, and I also love the food truck festival that we have and the food trucks downtown that we're currently trying to approach possible changes. I also love those food trucks, but I'm definitely on board with getting things under control, like Councilor Land has mentioned, and not being taken advantage of in any way.
Councilor Schwartz.
Do we collect sales tax on these revenues? So I should pass on Mayor Box, the receipt had no tax on it, so I just was assuming that it didn't reflect any tax.
Do you have any intel on that, Mr. Subsega? If you get a receipt, it just says $10, and what else does it say? Anything else?
$10.
So part of the application process requires them to submit a copy of their sales tax permit number from the Oklahoma Tax Commission. And it is on them to remit their sales to the Oklahoma Tax Commission, and we would receive that payment from the OTC. Any auditing of that, we can match the sales tax permit number to the report we receive from OTC, but in the enforcement of that is on the OTC if we suspect that someone is not remitting their sales tax, and they have one of their field agents reach out to the customer and straighten out that situation.
I think you might well just say that. Is this is your area of expertise, food trucks?
It's part of the permitting process.
Are you confident that we're receiving all the revenue share that we're supposed to be either now or in the past prior to you being here?
We have.
Is there an issue that you're aware of?
We've done a spot audit of the food truck. If a truck is going to purchase a 1-day permit,
we charge $5. Or they can purchase an annual permit for $75. And recently, a couple of the vendors asked for electricity hookups that we charge $50 and I believe $10 for the connection. So we are collecting on the license, the electricity, and if it's a one-day permit, the ones that we've noted, there has been remittance from or to OTC and then OTC to us. So the one that's currently on Main Street, that's to the bar. They have remitted their sales tax.
The orange one or the barbecue?
The barbecue. Yes.
So $5 per day, $75 for the year.
Yes.
Is this pretty standard boilerplate for what everybody else is charging? Or are we?
Those rates have been in effect.
Okay. So my only thought when I read all this is we got a huge problem with enforcement. The barbecue place has burned all the probably on the way to it's been there so long, it's not moving. I don't even know. So just stop me if I'm wrong, if you said a minute ago, this is just the amendment, but we're not closing the book on this discussion, but that thing never moves. And so you're saying by passing this tonight, we're going to require that they move every 12 hours.
They're already required
They're already
to
required.
not be operating for more than 12 hours.
Yeah.
And that's the Tulsa Health Department. But I mean, if you think about a food truck operation, are they going to be operating for 12 hours straight? They may or may not be, but that's not something that we enforce. That's something that the Tulsa County Health Department enforces. And so we didn't have a time limit in the previous ordinance. That's why we're proposing a time limit now for the food truck that is basically, for any food truck that wants to park at one location because they have the permission of the adjacent property owner. And I think what I tried to preface this discussion with, this is more complicated as we found out when we amended the code last year. And I think the goal is if we think there's an issue with food trucks parking on public property and sitting there for months on end, if we think that's a problem, here's a potential short-term solution. We're going to come back in a couple months with what we view as the long-term solution that is more comprehensive. It'll be compared to other communities. But this is just staff trying to get something on before council that can be a short-term solution until we get that more comprehensive. And maybe when we get to into the UDO, if everyone agrees on this tonight, we say, well, maybe we want to add a few things, but maybe this is the basis for the long term. I don't know. But
could I clarify when it reads food trucks must move every 12? What does move mean? Is that an inch, or does it have to be removed from the property?
Well, food trucks may not remain at one physical address for more than 12 hours. Okay. And they may not operate at one physical address for more than 2 consecutive days, or a total of 5 days in a 30-day period. So yeah, they can move.
So in all what's happening here is if we pass this, we can add it. If we don't enforce, this is the thing, we can pass these things all day, but if there's no teeth in this, we'll enforce it. So the way this is written is a barbecue truck can only be here 5 days out of a month.
At that location.
At that location.
And see what the other.
But this is big time impactful. So there's a lot to consider here. Yes, we can take another stab at this in 3 months, but I think the spirit of this is we have ordinances that we can't or don't enforce. This looks like another one. And Mr. Trout saying we are going to perfect this somewhat, but if we pass this tonight, barbecue guy, the taco truck,
Well, I wanted to clarify, the taco truck, is it on public land or is it on that private lot? Private lot, so this would affect taco truck.
It would, because they wouldn't be able to be there.
Even on private, public property. Okay, that's why I misunderstood, that's all.
They could come to, then both of them could come to city council for approval of staying no longer than.
So what's the penalty if they don't adhere to the ordinance?
Street tacos. You can walk.
Well, I mean, there's nothing in here, so if they don't follow it, I mean,
Well, that was my concern with this whole thing,
there's no fee.
that Council Lynn and I, and the police, we had an issue just a month ago, and guy says he parks his trailer, his landscape trailer here, and he's laughing at us because he reads his ordinance and he moves it here. And he moves it 6 feet, and he says, I moved it.
Well, that's what they do, that's what the existing food trucks do, because there is a parking
Yeah.
rule. You can't park there for more than 24 hours, so he just moves slightly, or goes around the block and comes back and parks.
I'd just like to offer my opinion regarding food trucks in general. We're getting ready to explode with development. And the type of businesses that we're gonna try and get and attract to town are not the businesses that wanna see a main street with food trucks all over it. So I think we need to get outside the box of focusing on food trucks. We're getting ready to have that beautiful place that we have all dreamed about, just west of railroad tracks. We don't want, it's the strobe, they look cheap. We don't have control over whether they're painted or not. We don't have control over a lot of things that go with food trucks. So if we're going to attract the businesses that we want, you don't see food trucks all over the Rose District. I'm not saying we can't have a food truck festival or things like that. That's very, and I don't know much about Tulsa, but I did hear one comment, if anybody else knows, they allow food trucks in certain periods. They're not allowed to come and park, but they become like 1 day a week or 1 day a month. I don't know. But I think that we need to look at the impression that's going to be given about our town when we bring these business people in to look and see where they would want to open a business.
I think, since, going on Kevin's comments, the food truck is a competitor to a much more robust, much more competitive situation in a restaurant with a fixed kitchen with 4,500 square feet. And if it's competing, to Kevin's point, if we're sitting there trying to grow the sales tax and attract in, and those entrepreneurs are looking at the competition that they would have to face, and they've got to allocate millions of dollars, where these food trucks don't cost $50,000, and they don't have the wait staff, they don't have the backroom staff, they don't have to to expend, or they can make a lot more money on much lower revenues. So I'm with Kev 100%. I think we need to be very careful of the look. We know what happened when we got branded as the antique capital of the world. We've got 2 stores left, and then we're still the antique capital of the world. And I would do anything to not brand this city as the food truck capital of it. And if we don't do something fairly aggressive with this, it can get out. We've already proliferate, and at this stage of the game, we're trying to bring in restaurants that are looking to spend $3-4 million on facilities that are going to be around for 40 or 50 years. Those towers aren't going to try to move the barbecue truck. And so at the end of the day, I want my feeling. I think is
expressed as strongly as Kay Lentz that this is a material problem. And I'd like whatever resolution we ultimately adopt from the staff recommendation to be extremely forceful. I don't know if this is the place to put it. You talk about there's no downside or no enforcement that can be. Is this the proper place to put in a fine, or is that a separate issue?
We do, in this chapter, there's a general penalty of $200 for violation of the terms. There's also a provision to revoke permits if anyone isn't complying. So the problem we have right now is they aren't really violating anything. We don't have anything they're violating. So trying to get something that we can enforce. We have the mechanisms, but we don't actually have the guidance. We don't have the rules.
So if we push that or approve this tonight, it goes back to tomorrow, do we give them a grace period?
And I haven't looked at what the date of, I don't know if Walter knows the date of the current food trucks that are in the downtown area. Do you know the dates of their permits? I think they're going to be approaching in 1 year.
We've got a list, but a couple of them are approaching 1 year. Most of the ones that were here originally were from during the pandemic, initially when it started, and they were short term. I think there's 3 active food trucks going right now, but the big problem is that they parked. And so that's the issue. So
we think they're approaching a 1 year anniversary, so it may be the right time that we can.
We could come back.
Yeah.
I would agree that. I think we should probably show a little grace here. In your opinion, do you think this has enough strength?
I think as long as there's a fine.
There is.
It will be.
But I mean, if a fine of $200 a day, that's not inconsequential, right? You gotta make it where it gets their attention.
I would be in favor of this going into effect. I think we give them a 30-day grace period, July 1st or July 5th here.
I think we.
And is that enough time to what's the communication plan for, how many food trucks do we have that we know right now are in violation of this, that we can at least reach out to the business owners? I mean, don't get me wrong, I think the barbecue place has become a fixture at Maggie's. I don't think you go to Maggie's without the expectation of buying food from a truck. I think that's part of the plan. If you keep people full of barbecue, they will drink more and stay longer. There's no doubt about it, that works. But I think we should do the right thing, that we communicate to the steady food trucks that are here repeatedly, you give them a 30-day notice, effective tomorrow. If we
I just said 2 trucks. There's that.
Okay.
Were mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And the rest of them, just so like Food Truck Festival, for example, to Councilor Wynn's point, exists under the special event permit. That's why we're able to have during special events, us, the garden club, a little bit different rules than day-to-day. So our tax permit, that covers those as well.
So to me, that's totally different.
Right. Yeah, I can do those.
Agree with that food truck. I think that's a fantastic marketing for us. So that's great.
Choose I know that are quasi permanently set up.
You're up here, any comments or concerns? I know you can walk every day and eat this, but that's a thing.
No comments or concerns.
All right, thanks.
While you're up here, I'll expand it a little bit if I could. I agree with Councilor Short, Councilor Wynn, with respect to closing the loophole, in short. But we've recently opened up a brewery that allows for outside food services, and the 5-day limit per month may impact that business.
But it's 5 days, it's the food trucks, it's food truck specific, right? So I mean, if you have different food trucks, they each get 5 days.
Okay. I don't want to impact a new business that just opened.
I think what Councilor Lindahl thinks, I know that, I think, speaking of the brewery, they have a couple of trucks that are in rotation, so they may surpass the 5 days.
Okay, let's talk about that, because Josh went ahead and he followed the PUD and everything, and he has installed specific grease traps. He has installed specific, for these fruit trucks that come in, have to hook up. He's already got the hookup, he's got the grease traps. He has 6 month leases on these food trucks, is what the last word. because it was approved for him to have two. And so this is something that we really have to consider.
And in this ordinance, council can still approve a longer time frame than what is listed in the ordinance.
Sure. Yes, and to McFarland's point was at the most, I think he envisioned 4 food trucks there at any one time.
Right.
They have had turnover. I've been twice in the last week and a half driven in there. I haven't seen the same one more than twice. But guys, if we don't like the 5-day thing, we can change it to 7. I mean, we can do what we want here.
But that's the only caution.
I think 5 is if the staff, if this is staff's recommendation.
It's not one.
Yeah.
It came from somewhere. Okay. I mean, I think it's definitely good that we move to add some teeth to this ordinance. So I agree with you and Councilman wholeheartedly that on every point that you've made. If we want to approve this tonight, I think, my opinion, I would like us to do that, or at least I would be in favor of this. We can modify this language if we need to. This is staff's recommendation.
I would just, what I would like to see is more teeth in it, because we don't know what their insurance is, so we're gonna say, this is good until the UDO is done, but we don't know what their insurance is.
Well, they can't get a permit without insurance, right?
That is correct. We actually have copies of their insurance.
But hear what I said, when we get our car insurance, when we get our house insurance, the mortgage company tells us, you have to insure your house for this much. You have to insure your house for total replacement cost, the insurance company tells you. So you have 2 people telling you how much insurance. We don't even know how much insurance, if all they're gonna say is, here's my certificate of insurance. It may be $5,000.
So does anyone want to speak to the minimum liability insurance requirements for a food truck so we can satisfy the council?
I am not an insurance expert. I can tell you for our special events, we have to have a policy that's a minimum of $1 million coverage. So also lists the city of Jenks as a policy holder.
Okay.
That's good, man.
That's for 1 day.
Yeah, that's for our.
I think that's a great start. Mr. Nolan, does anybody want to, what are we requiring? So if I bring a food truck next week and I want to camp out for 3 days, what's my minimum liability insurance requirement? What do you think's on your check?
Insurance?
Yeah.
We haven't put any limit on that, and I think
haven't
that's a
put any
really
limit
good
on
idea to do that. And most of them are business insurance licenses, so it is, I believe the minimum I've seen is $1 million, but I didn't review it before the meeting.
Could we just state it simply to equate to the special permit levels? Whatever the minimum tonight.
Especially if
So you require each food truck to have $1 million?
No, we have to have, because the event.
That's what I
The
thought.
event.
It's not-
It's not each truck, it's the event. Well, I don't know what a reasonable amount is. I can't imagine some of these food trucks have a $1 million.
These are small businesses.
Yeah, so.
I think we could research, look at what Walter collected so far to see what they have.
Can we agree not to address this tonight, but put it into phase 2 of us clamping down on this and address it in the UDO or
I prefer to table it and add some more teeth and stuff.
Well, no, we need to do this tonight. We can add the verification of minimum liability insurance to part 2 of this. This is just the phase 1 of us taking a little more control of this process. I don't want to neglect this tonight because we could have an influx of trucks, and we don't have any accountability at all. So this is a good step.
I just want to know who's going to monitor this, because we've got 3 days and 5 days. Who's going to monitor it? Who's going to be held responsible? Because I'm tooling around town a lot. And I don't want to be responsible.
I think it might be a good idea for Councilman Murray, who's the chair of the Public Safety and Ordinance Committee, to add this to your to-do list of things that you're going to pay special attention to.
He's kidding.
No. I mean, we all know, we've all had an email and a phone call. We have ordinances that are hard to enforce. We've all department. This is another one of those things we need to add to our list. We can either pass these things and never enforce them, or we can figure out a way to do it. And that's your job, my friend.
Councilor Lynn has already mentioned that she drives around town all the time.
Liam, do you want to deputize her?
We will take that under advisement and see what needs to be done, but,
And I'll be happy to help you with that.
okay.
I think we all understand what the joke is if we're gonna spend our time with this, let's enforce it. Otherwise, what's the point? Right? I agree. Any concerns or questions about the 12 hours, the 5 days? This is our time to make these changes if we need to before we consider a vote.
I mentioned 5 days, and I think it can stand with the special exemption by council as worded here.
Okay, so. Anybody else want to comment on the 5 days? Is that adequate? What does this special exemption process, do we have, I don't want to come in and vote on the day off to give a guy an extra couple of days, so,
Once it'd be an agenda item on a.
So they'd have to wait till the next council meeting.
I would only question, if I could, Mayor, sorry, 3 consecutive days, if, for instance, this past weekend, if somebody wanted to set up on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, because of the holiday, there would be a 4 consecutive day deal, so I don't know. Sir?
They'd be breaking the law.
You'd be breaking the law, and that's what I'm saying, if we need to maybe consider on a holiday weekend that the provision would be there without having to come in front of the council for a special event. But again, I'm just laying that out for discussion.
Or rather than have all these variables, we can just increase the 3 and 5 if we like, or we can. Let's keep this as simple as we can. Yeah, Councilor Isbell said he doesn't mind keeping it at 5 with a special, an opportunity to vote on it. I think that's the government. I don't think we need to vote on every little thing that in this town. I don't think we need that type of control. What do you guys think? You just want to raise the numbers?
I think,
Councilor Short, what do you think?
5 and 7.
Councilor Lynn?
I just think it's always gonna be a variable. We can put any number on it we want, but there's always gonna be a variable. And I think you said, well, this is a phase 1. We're gonna be working on a phase 2.
Yeah.
This gives everybody time when we hit phase 2 to think about it. And because after you go and you do your reflective thinking, you're gonna be, oh, maybe we should do X, Y, and Z instead of this. That's just my recommendation.
So you're not in favor of us increasing the days tonight?
No.
Okay. All right. I guess we'll go ahead. If somebody wants to make a motion, we'll decide whether or not we agree. Is there any further discussion? Discussion from staff? We beat the food truck to death? All right, I'll entertain a motion on item, what number are we on? 8. If there is one.
Are we gonna have the effect, well.
I said entertain a motion on item number 8 with an effective date of July 1st. That would be my recommendation. What were you thinking?
So you're giving them 30 days?
Yeah, I think we should communicate to the 2 primary food truck vendors that we have that this change is coming. I mean,
Okay.
or we can send the food police out tomorrow and start hauling off their trucks.
Who's gonna notify them?
I'm gonna leave that to the city staff. I know I'm not doing it.
Okay, just want to clarify.
Yeah. Since you're out tooling around, maybe we can.
I move to approve the ordinance number 1556 as it is.
As is.
We have a motion to
Well, with
approve.
30, with the 30-day effective July 1st.
And I'll second that.
Okay, we have a proper motion and a second to approve item number 8 as it's written with an effective date of July 1st, in which the city will communicate to existing vendors what our plan is. We have a proper motion and a proper second.
Fine.
Yes.
Short.
Yes.
O'Shea.
Yes.
Caitlin.
Yes.
Isbell.
Yes.
Murray.
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes. Okay, we can pull item number 9, the emergency clause. Yeah, not affected immediately. Everybody goes. Good call, good catch. All right, other business, city manager report.
Mayor and all members of council, you have the weekly update in your packet. I was hoping that Mr. Carr could give a brief overview of the meeting that Chris Floyd and he had with Randall White about the Highway 75 Main Street interchange. I know he sent out, or Chris Floyd sent out some notes on it, but I just thought it'd be good if Robert could touch on it too and see if there's any questions from council.
Mayor and council, as the city manager indicated, Chris Cloyd and I met with the division engineer, Randall White, and the assistant district engineer construction, Seth Buchanan, and talked over what could possibly be done at the interchange. They have a concept plan that was put together for the entire Highway 75 corridor that was done in 2001. And they realized that it's probably a little out of date because back in those days, nobody cared how much anything cost, so they just put it on paper. And they're working their way south on the interchanges. So they figured that they would be, probably one of the next interchanges would be the Main Street interchange. But there's a lot of things that need to be looked at that location because there's two creeks that come together that they're trying to merge and build a bridge over. And that's going to take up a lot of cost, but it's also going to dictate a little bit about where the interchange could be located. I don't know if you've got your memo, but if you have a chance later to go back and look at it, they did show us a concept plan of what they thought they might be able to get to, but there's a big might because it hasn't been engineered. They're not sure if it really will work. There's a design called a diverging diamond, which people here in Oklahoma aren't exactly used to. But what it does is it takes traffic. If you're in the right-hand lane, you get switched over to the left-hand lane, and you're able to, when you get to the other side, able to make some traffic movements without having to come to a complete stop and merge easily. But that's going to widen the bridge. I mean, that's one of the main issues is that they're looking at the corridor widening to at least 6 lanes. So you got to have a bridge that's wide enough to accommodate 6 lanes in the future. The bridge itself would probably be 8 lanes and would be, from where it is today, everything's going to have to shift over a little bit to the west. So when you go look at your drawing, again, you'll see that the off ramp shifts to the west, but where the original concept plan took everything, it took it all through the middle of Woodland West. And they realized that's not going to happen because back in 2001, there wasn't the idea of Woodland West being as big as it is. So that they've already come to the conclusion that they'll have to shift away from there. But there's some property to the south of there that looks like it go right through the middle of a house and would require total land acquisition. So that's what they're thinking it might possibly get to at some point, but it all needs to be engineered and figure out a way of funding it. So one of the things that we talked to them about was, well, how can we move in that direction? And Randall made an unofficial commitment to be able to get some engineering started on he calls it right-of-way acquisition and utility relocation he can put into the 8-year plan. And what that does is it now kicks in some ability to hire some engineers. And if he's got it on the plan, then we can probably start getting an engineer on board. We meaning them and us in concert with each other. But he doesn't really want this publicly known, because if somebody else finds out about him doing something like that, then they're probably going to come up and say, well, why don't you do that for us too? Okay, so I didn't say that. But they do what they call a rebalancing of the 8-year plan every year to make a more current 8-year plan. And they're going to be starting to do that in late June and July. It'll take a couple of months and then get approved by the Transportation Commission in October. Once that's in place, then maybe we can start getting some better ideas of what something will happen ultimately. But even when that happens, they're believing that it would be helpful if they can have us partner with them in some manner or another. And partnering could be maybe do the right-of-way acquisition. Now, when you're talking about a total take of that property to the south of Woodlands West, then we're talking about some serious dollars here. So it's not just a couple $100,000 to do this. It's probably going to be more than that. But they're just throwing a number out for what they thought the construction would be somewhere on the order of $25 to $30 million to do construction. So, I mean, this is not a cheap project, and it all has to do with not just the intersection, but crossing the bridge to the south, where Polecat and Nickel Creeks come together. We made some progress. We talked about, well, what could we do in the meantime to try and do something at the intersection? And they were really believing that right now for traffic flow, if they could put up some stop signs, which is going to require a little bit of education of the public. When people are coming south on Union, there would be a stop there and allow people coming off the exit ramp, there would be a stop there, which there already is, so that they can merge easily. Then on the east side of the bridge, there would be a stop sign also, so that people coming off the exit ramp could have a free flow lane, and probably put some lane delineators in there when you're coming across the bridge going east, so that the ramp traffic could come off easily and not have to stop. I mean, that's already backed up. Had a couple accidents on there that I know of already. Talked about maybe dressing the bridge up a little bit by painting the bridge. We talked about if this is the top of the whatever they call the side of the bridge, as you're going across it, there's a railing on top of it that, to me, helps to keep people from being able to have a clear sight view if you're coming off the ramp. So talked about maybe taking that off, but they said, well, there's some federal safety requirements and why that is probably on there, but maybe there's a different type of railing that could be put on there that may be a little more decorative or cut down on the sight distance a little bit or increase the sight distance. But the construction engineers have been out there also, and Randall called if we put this together, and he wanted to know if we had a problem with them doing some repairs on the ramps. And I said, no, we don't have any problem with that. That's one of the main reasons we came to talk to you about all this. And he said, well, let me tell you what that means though. That means we would have to close the ramp off in order to do it because we would replace the concrete panels in the ramp. And he says, you know, there's 4 ramps there. And he says, each ramp would have to be closed for a week. So we're going like, okay, 1 week closed, then it would be open, then the next one would be closed and open. And I said, well, you know, give me an idea of what you're talking about and when the time frame may be, and we'll get the notice out to the public when it would happen. And I just think, you know, if we really want to have some improvements made, we really have to get something like that done. So we're going to have to bite the bullet and work with them to get it accomplished. So they're willing to do that, and he's trying to put together a plan on how that would happen right at this point. So I think we made some real good progress. Hopefully he gets it on the 8-year plan to do the right-of-way acquisition, utility relocation portion, and get an engineer on board, and then we can move forward to where we're going to go into the future. That's about all I can tell you right now. If anybody's got any questions, I'll see if I can answer them.
Questions, Captain?
With respect to a 3-way stop at both sets of off-ramps, if that were to happen, 1, how long would it take? And 2, if the line of sight wouldn't be an issue because everybody would come to a complete stop?
Well, that is true, yes. Both those, the line of sight would not be as big of an issue. That is true. How long would it take? They're working on figuring out where they would place the signs right now. They would place the signs and put some stop bars out there also. So that would be a very short-term thing. They would be doing it fairly soon.
Stop bars?
Yeah. Stop signs have stop bars.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not really a 3-way stop. It's a stop sign to stop traffic on that road, and it's really a 1 stop. There may be a stop sign that's fairly close to it, but it wouldn't be 3-way stopping all for traffic to move. There'd be a stop sign on Union, a stop sign at the southbound exit ramp, and a stop sign on the east side of the bridge.
East side of the bridge.
So that essentially the sight lines, which are an issue because of the speed of the vehicles. So
Yeah.
it's theoretically, if everybody's going slower, you'll have more time to see potentially. Although I think the railing is still not a good.
Yeah, it depends on where you're exiting off of there. For me, I can't see.
Yeah.
When you're exiting, going south on 75 and trying to make a left-hand turn there, you cannot hardly see unless you get out in the middle of the road.
Yeah,
The cars are
that is true.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably a good idea we at least keep them on the path and consider a potential alternative to that railing. It sounds like there has to be something there. At least that says there's got to be something.
They weren't real supportive of that idea because they figured that the reason the railing was there was because of federal requirements, but we asked them to take a look and see what the requirement was.
Something with a lower profile.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally haven't investigated really, but I do know that when you're looking left to come into Jenks, the cars split up because you've got that steel that's in front of you, so I think it totally makes sense.
And yeah, I agree, something needs to be done. Several times in the last month, I had stopped on that exit, just barely off of Highway 75. Traffic backs up to Highway 75.
Yeah.
And that is an issue. It's a concern of mine as well. So I want to say thank you for taking the time to meet with them and get the ball rolling. Again, I said, when do we have it? As soon as possible. But I appreciate the fact that the wheels of government run a little slower.
Well, I was going to equate it and say, just keep in mind we are trying to move a fairly big elephant here. but they were listening. And they have made some efforts to put some thought into it.
I have one more question, Mr. Clark, and I don't know if you can answer it or not, but when you said 8 lanes, I thought, what? What is the purpose, or did they share with you the purpose of 8-lane bridge when you only have a 4-lane?
That'll all be worked out in the design. That's just what they were talking about.
That's not what you could put it.
Councilor Short. I just have to say that I just want to express my appreciation for the work you've done. The delegation has been over there to formally press the city's needs. And I think we've got, I mean, frankly, I'm very pleasantly surprised and afraid I'm not here. So I want to thank everybody that spent their day, in the Secretary of Communication. I think it was my best use of our time we possibly did. So, okay, I think you may have started that ball rolling, but I think everyone, all the citizens of Jenks understand what we're doing here and why it's so important. And I think we've all had issues, anecdotes, problems in that. So I just wanted to thank you.
Well, thank you, and I do believe that because of the trip everybody took over there, that's why Randall's doing something. He wasn't doing it because the secretary was giving him direction. He was doing it because he knew he had to do it, or he was going to get some direction. And I reminded him that maybe the governor might be interested in this at some point in time also, but we're not pressing that issue.
His headquarters is right there.
Yes. Okay.
So it's reason. Yeah. You mentioned reconstruction of 4 ramps. Is that at any cost to us, or is that on?
No, that's theirs.
Okay, so the only cost to us is pain and suffering of communicating with everybody that we're going to close these off. We do 1 week each, and then we're going to move on that.
Really, he's putting a plan together, and we'll see what it means.
I would encourage, outside of some silly number, we need to do whatever it takes from our side to help assist them. This is the entrance, the west side entrance to our city. It's the first impression you get when you come to our city, and if you lose a strut, that's a bad impression. So I am very willing to do whatever it takes to some degree from our whatever part we can do to help promote that.
Yes, I agree, and I think that because of the meeting we had over at their office, that they actually went out and looked and saw that maybe they better do something with the ramps, because if they're doing reconstruction now, they realize they're in bad shape.
About the idea of getting the bridge painted, just to kind of put lipstick on the pig, so to speak. That's something they're willing to do quickly.
I don't think they would do that. The last time it was done, we did it.
Okay.
Well, actually, we didn't do the whole bridge. We just did the railings that were all rusty and looking lousy, which are, again, at that stage.
Any idea at the top of your head what the ballpark is on bridge painting it or staining it, whatever the case may be?
It wouldn't cost that much money, probably a couple $1,000.
You guys want to say repaint it?
Staying it up on that. What's that? So let's not vote on that.
We just voted on the budget,
Let's see what their timing is on doing the ramps. Maybe we can work it in during that
I think it might
process.
be the best time to paint it is when we're already experiencing the paint, shutting it down.
Yeah, maybe, but you're still gonna have 300 ramps open at the same time and Union.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate the update. Brandon, going forward, can we add a number 2 under other business for committee reports and a number 3 for a mayor's update? I have one. We'll just go from city manager report to committee reports. Do you have anything else, Mr. Stroud? So I had Mr. Stroud email you guys. A couple of you keep asking for that list of committees, so hopefully you guys got it today. Any updates from any of the committees?
I have a prepared statement for the IT infrastructure. And I had to write it down, so I didn't want to misstate anything. And Basically, last week, the Jenks City IT Manager, Kerry Vincent, and I discussed the current state of the city's IT infrastructure. Since the recent events in the city of Tulsa and Gary, Indiana, it is imperative that we pay close attention to our security profile. I was pleased with the depth and breadth of our conversation regarding the current security and preparedness of our infrastructure. The security of our city information, including but not limited to municipal court records, police, fire, and 911, utility records, and city personnel records, are to be secured at a high level. Our current policy of multi-tiered backups ensures restoration of all departments and functions in the city. And we are engaged with private security firms and the federal government to ensure we are compliant with the recommended standards for network protection. Mr. Vincent will be investigating additional government services provided for municipalities and nonprofits. I purposefully did not mention any of the vendors or services that we are entertaining because that's our knowledge. I'll be happy to provide it to council in an email, confidential email, with regard to the security firms that we're dealing with. Any questions? We are, like I said, following government standards, and a department parallel to FEMA has been created for cybersecurity at the federal level, and they will provide free intrusion detection services for municipalities and nonprofits. So I think that's something we're going to look at, and I'll have more information on that in the coming weeks.
Will they just do a no-cost penetration test?
Correct.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, let's do it.
Mr. Vincent is investigating that directive.
Okay, that'd be great. And for anybody else that's chairing these committees, if you haven't identified your members yet, and I'm not talking council members, but I modified the committee list to include suggested staff members, and then the fact that, don't get lost in the weeds here, this is a committee. You're welcome to find business owners, any of our citizens that are highly engaged in these topics, going forward these committees together. The direction of our city, yes, we vote on it, but a lot of times the best ideas are coming from our neighbors. So drag your neighbors into these committees if you need to. And let's make some progress on these. And I'll have an update for you on our strategic getaway in the next week. We'll kind of go from there. Anybody interested in a 5-minute break after we adjourn, or do you want to press on?
JPWA should be pretty quick.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, I'll take a motion to adjourn if there is one.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on adjournment. Let's vote, please.
Klein? Yes. Short?
Yes.
OJ?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Isabel?
Yes.
Murray?
Yes.
Mayor Marks?
Yes. You're adjourned at 8:14 p.m. Meeting, regular scheduled meeting of Jenks Public Works Authority. It's still June 1st, 2021. It is 8:15 p.m. Call over, please.
Klein? Present. Short? OJ?
Here.
Taylor?
Yes.
Isabel?
Present.
Murray? Here. Chair Marks?
Here. All right, item number 1, consideration of appropriate action relating to the request for approval of consent agenda. Any motion to approve item 1 of the consent agenda?
Motion to approve. Second.
You have a proper motion, a second. Let's vote, please.
Klein?
Yes.
Short?
Yes.
OJ?
Yes.
Caitlin?
Yes.
Isabel?
Yes.
Murray?
Yes.
Chair Marks?
Yes. Item number 2 will be pulled. And item 3, public hearing on proposed budget for fiscal year 2021 to 2022. Mr. Sauceda, if there's any additional comment or any additional questions from council since we've, anybody forget anything they may wanted to ask earlier?
Just to include the amendment on the $2 discount.
Absolutely. And I think Councilor Lynn made that amendment now that she's memorized it. We have to say it again. So we'll go ahead and close the comments from the council. Is there any public comment on item number 3 or proposed budget for fiscal year 2021 or 2022? Okay, no public comment on item 3. And we'll entertain a motion for item 3. Councilor Lynn, if you'd like to do us the honors there.
Maybe I'll do.
No disregard, that's for this public hearing only. Okay, item number 4, and thank you again. Shouldn't make that say twice. Request to approve, deny, or amend resolution 2021-06, appropriating and approving the fiscal year 2021-2022 annual budget, providing for a pay plan and benefits program for the city of Jenks, Oklahoma, and providing for an effective date of July 1st, 2021. The authority may approve, deny, or amend both the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget document and resolution 2021-06. Mr. Scott Stata. Any questions last minute from the comments from council?
We need to put the amendment.
Yes, we will. We'll do that here.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve item number 4? Councilor Lynn.
I move that we approve with the amendment that if you're 65 or older, you
To receive a $2 discount.
That's what I was supposed to say.
Good.
If you're 65 or older, you receive a $2 discount on your water and your sewer. Thank you.
Happy with that? I'm gonna get okay. All right, is there a second?
Second.
We have a proper motion and a second on item number 4. Let's vote, please.
Klein?
Yes.
Short?
Yes.
OJ?
Yes.
Kaylin?
Yes.
Isabel?
Yes.
Murray?
Yes.
Chair Box?
Yes. Any additional comments from the general manager?
No, sir.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We have a proper motion and a second. Let's vote, please.
Klein?
Yes.
Short?
Yes.
OJ?
Yes.
Kaylin?
Yes.
Isabel?
Yes.
Murray? Yes. Chair Box?